Hello chess family, it's me National Master Jesse James, and today we're on rule number 28. It is worth a pawn to get a rook to the 7th or the 2nd rank. Now this rule is about getting your rooks active in the endgame, right? When you get your rook either to the 7th or the 2nd rank, that just means the rook is going to be able to attack the pawns naturally, because, well, that's where the pawns naturally start at. This is the reason why we say the 2nd or 7th. Of course, when you're playing the white perspective, you want to get to the 7th rank, because then the rook will attack the pawns. Or if you're looking at it from black's perspective, you're looking to get to the 2nd rank, so again, the rook will attack the pawns. Which is going to go into one of our other rules, rooks belong behind passed pawns, or think of it just rooks belong behind any pawn when you're going to attack it too. It's always best behind it, whether you're attacking or defending. And well, this game we're going to see how Morphy gets into a nice rook rook endgame and gets his rook to the 7th. And the game just ends very fast. Let's go and take a look. We start off with e4, e5. In this game, Morphy's going to be playing with the black pieces against George Hammond. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4 in Italian, bishop c4, pawn to c3. Awesome. We got the gioco piano here getting ready to get played. Pawn to d4. We're going to get a good game in. Knight f6, and now pawn to d4 main line. The best way to play if you're trying to get that advantage as white. Here black has to play correct. E takes d4, and now an interesting move here, pawn to b5. Not to be recommended. Here, of course, c takes d4 is going to be the main line, and there's many different ways that black can try to play down this game. Bishop b4 check being one of them, and here we have knight to d2 to get played. You have knight to c3. Even bishop d2 has been played in this situation. Again, this is the main line, and definitely recommended if you're going to be playing this as white. In the game, you played e5, and now black just gets a very good game. This is good theory for you guys. Black to move. What is black's best move? This gets equality right away. If you don't play this move, you will be in trouble here as black. So if you do play this opening, it is recommended that you pay attention and remember this move. Are you paying attention? All right, it's black to move. What do you play here? Hopefully you found it. Remember, you can play this move as black. You're equal, if not better, in the e4 or in e5 games. Of course, we play pawn to d5. This controls the center, makes a threat, and also opens up the bishop. If you don't get a pawn to the center, well, white's going to have all the control over the center, so black never really reaches equality. So, white goes ahead and plays bishop to b3, which may seem weird to you if you don't play the theory. But let's take a look and see if you do try to grab this pawn, or this knight over here on f6. The game just goes terrible. Here we go. Pawn takes on f6, d takes on c4. And if you do try to get greedy here and grab this extra pawn here on g7, that's quite okay. Black's more than happy. Rook g8. We will win this pawn back at some point. You can see we have a nice center over here. Again, if you're trying to play like something like c takes d4, I prefer knight takes d4 here. And here there's, I guess bishop e3 can get played. We have rook takes g7 is a move. Knight takes f3 is a move. Bishop g4 is a move. Here, black is already in a better position. And it didn't take too long either, did it? So let's go back to the game. That's why white goes ahead and just says, you know what, I am just in a worse position, and plays bishop to b3. All right, now it's Morphy's move. What are we going to do now? We got to move the knight. Where's the best place for the knight to move to? Of course, knights like being in the center, so the knight jumps to e4. C takes d4 and bishop to b6. The problem for this game for white is this d4 pawn, is it has a lot of pressure on it. In fact, later on, Morphy's going to be winning this pawn with tactical measures. All right, well, let's keep going forward. Castles here for white makes sense. Develop with the threat here. Here you could, of course, castle, but developing with the threat here is very nice. Again, the d4 pawn is the weakness. What do we play? Bishop g4. The threat here is now just a simple knight takes d4, and due to the pin, well, we can't move it. All right, well, developing with a threat, or developing and defending. Bishop e3 gets played, defending the d4 pawn. And now castles here. So if you wanted to, you could take on f3 right away, and well, white's not going to take back with the queen because that knight takes d4 just wins the pawn. So you'd have to take back with your pawn here. The knight goes to g5, and the knight's looking to go to e6 to win on d4. This is basically what happens in the game. It just could have happened a little bit faster. Here, of course, Morphy just decides to castle, which I like. Very principle, and well, there's no need to rush into this. There's even ideas about playing f6, f5, so we can either go for the attack or maybe open up the F file and put pressure on the pin piece. Remember, this is a relative pin, meaning, well, there's two different types of pins in chess. You have the absolute pin and the relative pin. An absolute pin is done with the king. You absolutely cannot move the piece because, well, you put yourself into check. What's a relative pin? This is the relative pin. You can move the piece, just know whenever you move it, the piece that is getting pinned will be lost. All right, let's move forward here. White played queen to d3. Yeah, white was so tired of this pin, they just decided to go ahead and play queen to d3, and, well, things just go bad horribly. Here, of course, white had many other options. Knight c3 just developing. You can't go knight to d2 because, well, you can just take the pawn on d4, or maybe even just take on d2 here. There's a lot of good options here that you can really play in this position. All right, queen d3 was played, and of course, simple chess. What do you play here? Of course, let's mess up the position here for white. Bishop takes on f3, g takes f3. Now we see that white has double pawns in front of the king. All right, where do you move the knight to next? Knight g5, of course, a nice move here. Threatening two different strong ideas. Knight f3 check, and knight to e6, again putting pressure on this d4 pawn. And you have to play this precisely. In the game, queen f5 was played, and this was not up to the task. Of course, again, there's many moves here that we're losing. f4, if you were thinking about this move, black to move, knight check, and then we're going to win on d4 here. What else is there a move that might look normal here? I would maybe look at something like knight to d2. And again, knight e6 here is just going to be basically just winning the pawn here on d4, as we have three attackers and they've only got two defenders, and there's not another piece that can defend. All right, well, in the game, as I said, queen f5 got played. Knight takes on d4. Very nice tactics here from Morphy. Here, it looks like you should be able to win a piece. That's the idea of queen to f5, but this does not work out. Can you tell me why? Hopefully you found it. If you do try to get tricky and play something like bishop takes d5, here we have quite a few moves here, but of course knight takes f5 is just going to be the easy move. Bishop takes and rook takes, and, well, we're just going to be up a pawn, and we also have a better pawn structure here against white. Wait a second, can't we go ahead and play queen takes g5? Hopefully you saw it. Knight takes f3 might be a little embarrassing, especially if you're around your friends and you lose your queen. Let's see here. Well, after queen f5, knight takes d4 just gets played, so this is attacking the queen. The queen can't take the knight since knight takes f3 is being played. Bishop takes on d4, bishop takes d4, of course. Knight c3 developing with a threat, attacking the d5 pawn. And here a nice inter-Samoa, or an in-between move. We could play pawn c6 here right away, but here Morphy decides to go ahead and play pawn to g6, attacking the queen. And here the queen has a hard time finding a good square. The queen ran to g4. Let's keep harassing this queen. Let's keep gaining space. Yes, right. Pawn to h5. Queen goes to g2. And now a very nice move here. Bishop takes on e5. If I was playing, I might think about playing pawn to c6. The problem with this move is that, well, maybe there's moves like pawn to f4, and maybe white can hold on to this pawn. Here Morphy is able to calculate a win. Bishop takes on e5. Knight takes on d5. It looks like things are going to get crazy here, but Morphy just restrains and maintains. Pawn c6. Rook to e1. Of course, if you move the knight away somewhere, well, black's just happy in these kind of positions. So, rook e1 got played, developing with a threat. Here there's a few different moves to play, but I like the way Morphy handles it. Rook to e8. Pawn to f4 got played. C takes d5. F takes e5. And here we're getting into one of those nice endgames, well, whenever it's going to be good knight versus the bad bishop. Maybe bad bishop is too strong a word. This bishop is pretty decent here, but here it just gets restrained. Here Morphy goes ahead and plays knight to e6. And this is a very nice move because he knows that taking the pawn would actually be a bad idea. Because, remember, it is worth a pawn to get a rook to the 7th or the 2nd rank. Here white was happy. White went ahead and played queen takes d5. Going into this endgame was definitely not the best decision for white. Of course, Morphy's very happy with this. Bishop takes. And now a nice move here. Knight f4 attacking the bishop. And here he takes a bad pawn with bishop takes b7. Be careful about these pawns that you take, especially on the b file or g files. When the rook moves over, it's not that you lost the pawn. It's that you're going to be losing it, and you're going to be losing a pawn and letting your opponent's rook be active. Rook e6 here, attacking the bishop. Bishop d7 and rook e7. No more temples for this bishop to attack the rook. And now, of course, we're going to go ahead and take this pawn. Here already, this is a very nice position here. The knight's very well placed. The pawn on e5 looks like it might be a decent piece, but, well, these pawns are a bit weak over here. In fact, the game ends quite prematurely here with white. White misses black's idea and loses the game very fast. Here, white went ahead and played rook to e4. Black to move and win. Can you win this game? All right, hopefully you found the last move here. A very nice move. Here we just play the simple rook takes on e2, and the game is over. Unfortunately for white here, they missed the back rank checkmate idea. Of course, if you go ahead and snack, it's just check, check, and mate. Oof. And of course, there's no time to go grabbing the knight over here on f4. As well, you'll drop a rook in check. Again, this is a very nice endgame principle. It is worth the pawn to get a rook to the 7th or 2nd rank. We'll see you in the next one.